Welcome into Texans on Tap, episode 35. I'm Brandon Strange alongside Charlie Palillo and Josh Jordan. Follow them on X at Palillo and at Josh Jordan 975. If you're new to the channel, welcome in. We invite you to hit like on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. For listening to your podcast, every episode is available on your favorite podcast app. Gents, this was a historic game for many reasons, not the least of which was the age of the starting quarterback getting the W today. So let's start with there. Texans get the win over the Browns. Yes?
The Texans just scored again. Wow,
Man,
right? There's an in-depth analysis people expect from Texans on Tap. I mean, what an obliteration. I thought scoring at the end of the first half and then coming out to get the ball to start the second half was a chance to put it away. Well, the offense didn't, and then Joe Flacco picked for the Texans a delightful time to look all of his 39 years as of this coming Wednesday, consecutive pick sixes. And, in the immediate aftermath, I mean, it feels like they're going to win the Super Bowl. That was the loudest NRG Stadium, Reliant Stadium has ever been. And there have been moments that very first game against the Cowboys, but what a special day for the franchise. And now if you think you're totally living right, man, I don't expect the Dolphins to win tonight in Iceland. But if they pull it off and then somehow the Steelers were to beat the Bills, well, everyone can reconvene at NRG Stadium next week. Perchance to dream the kind of dreams that this team is now allowing for fans.
Charlie, you left us all hanging. You forgot to mention which side of the ball scored that touchdown because there was a lot going on both sides. Josh, what impressed you the most about CJ's playoff debut performance here?
How about no turnovers? That's nice. That killed Joe Flacco, obviously. Early in the game, I was like, oh, because CJ missed kind of an easy touchdown to Nico Collins. But obviously it didn't really matter. They just kept piling on. I'm just so excited. It was a fun game to watch. It was a fun game to watch, and Davis Mills was in the game. That's when you know the Texans are having their day. Defense was incredible. The back-to-back pick sixes. Nico Collins, CJ Stroud, Dalton Schultz. It's everything you hope for. Even Mechie chipped in. They got some help from some of their other receivers. It was nice to see Robert Woods back out there. Awesome day for Houston Texans fans.
No turnovers, no sacks allowed. Myles Garrett committed more penalties, I think, than he was in on tackles defensively in the game for Cleveland. It was a touch-and-go start. Obviously, the final score is an absolute behind-the-woodshed beatdown, and it turned into that with the consecutive defensive touchdowns. But, Texans were behind on a couple of occasions. But Brevin Jordan, to throw in one more name, a 76-yard touchdown pass. And this is where stats can mislead, right? Those all go on CJ Stroud's phenomenal resume. But Brevin Jordan makes a nice move, gets free, and then outruns a defensive end to go the distance. The Cleveland Browns gave up the fewest yards in the NFL this season. They gave up an average of 270 yards per game. Before halftime, and they finished that way at halftime, the Texans had 286, right? They only gained 70 yards offensively in the second half. Well, that's okay because the defense was putting the points on the board. The Browns is a pretty amazing combination of statistics. Number one in the NFL in fewest yards allowed. Number one in fewest passing yards allowed. Yet this season, the Browns gave up the most points per game in their road games of any team in the NFL. That seems a very hard parlay to hit. And, well, the Texans hit the payoff with it today. Fewest yards passing allowed. Well, CJ Stroud over 203 touchdowns in the first half. Fewest points allowed. The Texans put 45 on the board. Granted, 14 of them defensively, but check my math. That still leaves 31 for the offense.
In the run game, only gains 76 yards, but it seemed like they were impactful, and it seems like at the right time it made the difference. And I felt like, correct me if I'm wrong, they did just enough in the run game to kind of keep the passing game in play.
Agreed. Singletary was something like 8 for 45 in the first half. So not heavy duty, but decent production per carry. They did call a play. I wondered if coming into this game, there would be a particular moment or two where CJ Stroud would need to pull it down. They put in a straight running call where he takes a pretty good hit, a quarterback running to the left end. That was a straight run sweep with the quarterback. And as he gets a couple of guys tackling him on the sideline, they're like, okay, get up, make sure both shoulders are okay. And then he was immediately fine. This is a throw first team. In all likelihood, they're at Kansas City or Buffalo. There's no reason to think they'd go into either place and run the ball well. So weather be damned, it'll be the CJ Stroud show. Nico Collins, they don't go up against each other, but Nico Collins, the better of Amari Cooper today, after Amari Cooper personally wiped out the Texans secondary the first go round. So yes, I understand the Arlington team plays yet this weekend, but since the Texans entered the NFL, the playoff victory standings now read Houston Texans 5, Dallas Cowboys 4.
Yeah, they didn't have to run it that much. And Singletary, he went over 5 yards a clip, 66 yards, 13 carries. So, but CJ kind of did whatever he wanted. It's funny too, early in the game, that first drive where they had to settle for a field goal, I'm sitting there like, oh, I don't like the play calls right here. I was a little disappointed with they tried that little flip pass up the middle that didn't work out. And then they tried to get CJ using his legs out on the perimeter. So I was really disappointed there. I was worried. I was like, "Ooh, is this going to cost him the game?" No, it wasn't even that close. We got to give some love to Derek Stingley, keeping Amari Cooper in check. Hell of a game by Stingley. Really great performance there.
All right, let's stay on the offensive side of the ball. But I second that. I had on my notes too, Josh, as you're talking about like opportunities missed, I was like, oh boy, that first drive, or I guess it's the second drive, stalling in the first, where they're on the 5 or the 4-5 and end up having to settle for a field goal. And then Stroud missing Nico wide open. Like Nico's just, has this guy beat by a mile and he overthrows him. So you wondered, man, like this is kind of a close game. Like, is this going to go? I mean, you forget about all that. If it wasn't in my notes, I don't think I would remember those plays because they became so inconsequential by the end of it. Okay. Now let's go to the defense, because that was really just part of the story here. I mean, we talked about the run game for the Texans. How about 56 total rushing yards for the Browns? 268 passing yards, but probably the least impactful 268 passing yards you'll see in a playoff game. It looked like this was going to be a back and forth game early, Charlie, but it just became one-sided really quick. What did you see from the Texans defense, that especially those 2 pick sixes? How did this turn so quickly for Houston?
Well, we mentioned CJ Stroud never sacked. Flacco was sacked 4 times, and it became a jailbreak late. But the single biggest play in the game, it doesn't go down as a sack. But Derek Barnett, who's done some good stuff since basically being signed off the street, right? A disappointment in Philadelphia, injuries, hadn't played very much this year. The Eagles cut him loose. Nick Caserio picks him up on waivers. They were playing in this game with both Will Anderson and Jonathan Gennard on a snap count, right? A lot of starts of possessions. Both of them were on the sidelines, figuring we don't want to ask them to play 60 snaps, 50 snaps defensively. So you pick your spots, ideally get into pass rush downs to have them both in the game. But Derek Barnett, who's made a couple of impact plays, he was all over Flacco. I thought, frankly, that was dumb. Later Ravens career, Joe Flacco, where he's a big, strong guy, but Barnett was on him. And to try to throw that ball as far as he tried to throw it down the left sideline, it was in the air for a long time. Nelson picks it off. And then once he gets past the receiver, he was gone. So you get an 82-yard pick right there. And then you come back to Browns. I thought they were in 4-down territory at that point, being down 31-14. Flacco tries to force it against the double team on a 4th down play. You have to throw it somewhere. And Christian Harris takes that one back. And, New Year's Eve, 3-2-1. Happy New Year, Texans fans.
Yeah, it was so fun to watch. I was just so impressed because coming out of halftime, Texans had the ball and they ended up having to punt, and that the game was still kind of close then. And I thought that was a big advantage that they had the ball coming out of halftime, but they weren't really able to do anything with it. But after that, it really didn't matter. And I have to say, I slightly enjoyed watching Deshaun Watson on the sideline, watching all this go down. That gave a little bit of joy to my heart. I don't know about you guys.
It's a crying towel for Deshaun now. except for payday.
Sorry about that. So how about 9 minutes of garbage time in the fourth? That's pretty incredible. You couldn't have seen that. I mean, everything projected this game being a lot closer than it was, but how impressed were you with the defensive front line there, really putting pressure on Flacco? I mean, you talked about the 82-yard pick six, Charlie. Pressure was what caused that. And pressure, like we saw the secondary outside of those plays in which, the pick sixes, secondary kind of got picked apart a little bit by Flacco in situations, but it seemed like when the pressure was there, that was the difference. How impressed were you with that front line?
Hey, in the first half, right, the Texans with the score at the end of the half, they're up 24-14, but Flacco was 15 for 19, 170 yards, and hit a couple of long plays himself. So at halftime, he's on pace for 340 yards passing and 28 points on the board. But turnovers, turn games, it's the single biggest predictive statistic in the NFL. And if you are multiple to the good, right, and then they're touchdowns on top of just takeaways, that's how you can blow it out. No turnovers for the Texans. No sacks allowed by the Texans. No dead ball penalties except for on one punt, right? Laramie Tunsil might have rocked back a time or two, but, he gets away with it a fair deal. Status sometimes comes with privileges. Will you get those privileges on the road against traditional playoff powers? That could become a talking point. But if you score defensively, you're probably going to win the majority of games. If you score twice defensively, 90% of the time, 95% of the time, today, 100% of the time.
Yeah, for me, I was just, because you talked about Grenard and Will Anderson. We know they've been on the snap counts. They've been banged up. To be able to get them out early and put your reserves in and keep them fresh for next week. And you saw there was second team defense out there, second team offense for most of the fourth quarter. So, as we're looking ahead to next week, what a benefit that is, because, they've had to play on back-to-back Saturdays. So to get these guys a little bit of rest, get them out of there before anything else happens. We saw Grenard. It felt like maybe he tweaked something a little bit during the game. I saw him come off the field a little frustrated. Hopefully that's not a big deal, because they're going to need these guys next week. And, I'm just going to say it. I bet on the Texans today. I got them at +2.5. I thought they had a good chance to win this game. I definitely thought they were going to cover, and they blew them out. I was watching the NFL Network pregame show before it all started. Not one person picked the Texans, not a single person. And I was just thinking, I was like, they're at home. Not one person is going to take the Texans. And Rich Eisen even made a point. He's like, all right, everybody smile so that when they screen grab this after the game and shove it in our face, because we all picked against the Texans, at least we'll look good and we're smiling. And sure enough, that came to fruition.
I will say that was one panel of NFL Network guys. I think The Athletic, 5 of their 7 picked the Texans. So it's a matter of,
really?
I guess, which group are you talking to at the right time? And it's just one more reminder, whether they're NFL Network experts, ESPN's battalion of ex-players, no one knows. No, if we knew, well, Josh knew, and that's why he's a rich man tonight. Well, a little bit wealthier than he was 4 hours ago, man. Yes. But we don't know. Right? No one, not the biggest Texans honk homer nut job would have said, yeah, I see 45-14 happening today, right? The total of 45 seemed high, and the Texans handled them themselves. An historic win, and, there have been 9-7 teams to make the Super Bowl, 10-7 +1. When you're 2 wins away, when you're 1 win away from a first ever trip to an AFC championship game, I don't think you're playing with house money, but other than disappointment in the moment, there's nothing now that can be considered disappointing about this season. And as we talked about sometimes as the years gone along, with CJ Stroud on a rookie contract, cheap money by NFL standards for a star quarterback for another 3 years, the window for greatness is wide open much sooner than anyone could realistically have hoped for.
Well, we had another Josh that's in the comment section here that had also bet on the Texans. He's not a Texans fan, though. He says he's a Giants fan. So 2 Joshes tonight betting on Texans, coming up happy. Look at those balloons. I don't even know how I did that. Guys, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the coaching job in this game, because I can tell you I've been a little bit critical at times of Bobby Slowick and the offense and kind of play calling and decisions to, how they get to the run. And, Josh and I have both kind of made comments about maybe you should evolve more passing and, check down plays. We saw a lot more of passing to the running back in this game. Again, the running game notwithstanding, there were some beautiful plays that were drawn up to get guys open in the passing game as well. Bobby Slowick looked great. And then on defense, I mean, you can't say enough about D'Amico Ryans. I'm going to let you guys decide which side of the ball you want to, talk about coaching wise, but because there's no shortage of things to choose from and be complimentary of here.
Yeah, and it's so often about the results. You can be schemed well, and if the other team just outplays you or you make big mistakes, it's the old, if you're crazy and you have money, you're eccentric. If you're crazy and you don't have money, you're just crazy. So today they were eccentric, specifically on offense, end around with Nico Collins, a jet sweep with John Mechie. Maybe it was adrenaline and just everything that was going right. I thought he seemed to have more burst, open on the sideline, just running past Newsome on one route. I believe it was on a third down play. And they left food on the table, right? The Dalton Schultz drop comes to mind. And again, Cleveland, a little bit football bipolar. I don't know, other than that the Browns did it, how you can be number 1 in the league in fewest yards allowed, but dead worst in the league in giving up points per game on the road. And the Texans made that latter stat one of the headlines of this one. And the Browns can go figure out how to play competent D on the road next year, I guess.
Yeah, right. I mean, it was an ass kicking on both sides of the ball. There's no way around it. And it was fun to watch. I wondered, I was just like, so many people were on the Browns, and I'm like, but he's Flacco. Eventually he's going to turn back into a pumpkin. And as I was watching the game, I'm like, come on, turn this guy over. He's thrown a pick in every single game he's played in this season. When's it going to come? And boy, did the Texans capitalize. Both picks they take to the house. So, I mean, if you're a Houston Texans fan, this is the best type of game, because you could just sit back in the third and fourth quarter and just relax and know that you're going to win the game and just enjoy it. And as a Houston fan, it's usually never easy, right? Like, it always comes down to the end. This one, they just cruised to victory. And hey, Houston fans, you've earned it. You have sat through so many seasons recently where it's just been an absolute disaster. You have earned this. Enjoy it tonight.
And, we talk about Flacco being Flacco. That meant something different for the Texans in years past, because Flacco has, kind of had the Texans number. And we've talked about it on this channel frequently about this year seems to be a year in which the Texans are exercising demons. I think we can safely say Texans have finally exercised that Joe Flacco demon, especially following the performance from week 16. I hate to do it. I mean, I'm having a great time, but I think we probably should wrap it up. Although we did pass 500 concurrent viewers on the channel right now. So I guess that I don't know. I'd love to keep going, but everybody's got stuff to do. But we appreciate, first of all, just want to say thank you to everybody who jumped in and watched us live tonight. And thank you for everyone who listens on the podcast. We do appreciate your patronage as always. If you're new here, hit subscribe on the channel. If you're not new, hit like on the video. We appreciate it. In fact, I'd say the more people that hit like on this video, the better luck the Texans will have in the divisional round going forward. Guys, and also make sure, before you tune out, make sure that you join us on Wednesday. We're going to do a preview of the divisional round on Wednesday. So please make sure you come back to us on whatever your preferred platform is. Easy for me to say. Guys, player of the game. Who you got, Charlie?
Well, it's a real tough one. I mean, CJ Stroud is almost an easy default choice. Defensively, it was one monster play, Steven Nelson. One monster play, Christian Harris. What rises to the level of player of the game? Josh, if you have a clear choice, feel free to go first.
I'll go with who I went with last week. I'm going to go with Nico Collins, because it's a little not the low hanging fruit, but I mean, he had almost 100 yards again today, and he's just a guy. He can get you down the field, or you can just flip him the ball, and he's so much bigger than your typical corner. You can just run over him. So I'm going to give it up to Nico. You guys can pick Stroud if you like. I'll take Nico today.
I will go defense since it was that side of the ball that put this game away, and I will go with Nelson, the first of the pick sixers, 24-14 game. At the time, Steven Nelson, the guy who's been the most durable, steady defender for the Texans this season, played more than 95% of their defensive snaps. So to pick it off and go 82 yards with it to make it a 31-14 ball game, the moment where the Texans are going to win this game. Right? Bill O'Brien's not coaching. They can't blow this one. They're not the Oilers. They're not going to blow this one. So I'm going to say, Steve, if you're into victory cigars, it's Nelson pick six that, was the first moment where you probably felt safe firing it up. So that's good enough for me.
I'm going to go with Joe Flacco. I'm kidding. I'll go CJ Stroud, 274, 3 touchdowns, and really didn't play much of the fourth quarter. I invite everybody who is watching this right now, put your pick for player of the game down in the comments section. We do appreciate the support. That's going to be it. That's going to be it for this episode of Texans on Tap. Like I said, we'll be back on Wednesday to preview the divisional round. For Charlie, Josh, thank you as always. Go Texans.